October the 8th, 2023. Guys, yesterday will go down as a day in infamy, just like Pearl Harbor. You've heard that mentioned in the last couple of days, and you've heard 911 mentioned. And a lot of people are confused about why there was a security breach that strong. Now, when I heard that, I immediately thought of Pearl Harbor because there was a planned security breach there. Remember that? A couple of guys were trying to call in radar information, and they were told that it was just blimps or whatever it was. Everything was downplayed, but as history played itself out, we found out that certain people in power knew it was coming, and it was an excuse to bring about another war and get involved with Japan. Well, we're seeing that now. What you're looking at is a YouTube channel called Al Jazeera English. On the left, on the large screen, you've got a repeat of all the videos you've been seeing for 2 days. But in the top right and bottom right are two live feeds, and they're changing pretty constantly. You've got press from different places around the world coming in and giving their information from it. At the top right, if it hasn't changed yet, is a live cam in a fishing harbor, it looks like, in Gaza. You can't tell it here, but it had zoomed in earlier, and there's smoke right here, and it looks like some fishing boats, rather large ones, are on fire, and maybe some people trying to come in there and stop that. Don't know much about it, but that's what that's showing. It's just a live feed. But it's up to date on the information coming in. You've got 600 casualties on the Israeli side. About 400 of that is they think it's civilians. A lot of them, I know they found 200 people that had been killed at the big music festival in the desert there. It started at midnight, and then as daylight came in, the attack began. You got a lot of casualties on the Palestinian side, a lot of bombing going on back and forth. You also got a pair of 6-point plus quakes that hit in just northwest of there in Afghanistan. They found about 2,500 people that lost their lives, about 2,500 wounded, but they're expecting about 10,000. Some primitive type structures there and two powerful quakes. They got hit a couple of years ago too, guys, if you remember. And the people in Pakistan are in really dire straits because they've been overrun by the Taliban, and there's all kind of sanctions. They lost a lot of benefits that folks had there when they were taken over. And a lot of the military there and in other places are asking for permission from other countries to come in and join the battle. I'm not going to get into one side or the other. It's strictly information here at this point. I will say this, the situation is worse than most people expect. And what I have not heard much about is Egypt. And that's important because it is the strongest military of all of that area. And it is now an Islamic nation. It wasn't like that totally until Morsi, if I remember, in 2012. You guys remember? He came in, head of Egypt, fired all the generals, all the leaders of any type of police, military, anything that was in his cabinet or controlling any type of force, and replaced them with Islamists. At that point, Egypt was obviously not a friend to Israel anymore. And if you read Daniel 11, chapter 40, it talks about the king of the south coming, and that is Egypt. In my mind, I may be wrong, but now it is listed as the strongest military in the Islamic world. And so what happened yesterday or overnight, an Egyptian policeman opened fire on a Egyptian tour bus full of people from Israel. I think a lot of them were. And there was no reason given. It just like it was the beginning of the war, and it was a free-for-all. But I've always wondered why people would want to travel to these war-torn areas when at any minute these things can happen. But that's up to you, you know. But I do always remember in the back of my head when certain things happen, Christ said, when you see these things, flee and pray that your flight not be in the winter. People pouring in there. And This music festival thing, I don't know what it was about. I don't know if it was something like Burning Man or something much more calmer than that, but 200 were there, and you've seen them trying to run across that desert area at that point. But I don't think this one's going to end the way we've kind of got used to seeing the skirmishes in this area. A couple of days flare up here and there, and then everything comes down. Nothing really changes. Everything remains status quo, or a new settlement's built, or a new wave of rockets come in. But this right now looks like it's got the attention of the entire Islamic world. Of course, Israel has friends. They have many enemies, and they're going to need whatever help they can get. But I think we're getting close to seeing some major destruction in this area on both sides. Netanyahu and one of his defense ministers said yesterday late that all of the citizens of Gaza should evacuate because it looks like they're going to destroy the entire area, and they said it will not be rebuilt for 50 years. Now, that is going to make it a more aggressive situation all the way around, isn't it? But I would not doubt, now that where Egypt is sitting, that a lot of the evacuations will be open to that area. It wasn't always that way before Morsi, but I think you're going to see civilians going out that corridor, and possibly a large amount of military coming in. And don't forget about the air, because many of these people also, not just Israel, have a very good air force. And I think they're going to be surprised by what comes out of Egypt and some of the other nations. And if Turkey gets involved, it's going to be tough. Again, it's not a place to come and tour right now. As yesterday, some people were flying into Israel. Some were businessmen, I'm sure. Some were tourists, because that was still going on until yesterday. It's not a place to do it, because when they landed, bombs started going off at the airport around it, and they were laying out on the tarmac, and someone on the loudspeaker was saying, lay down don't get up, lay face down on the tarmac, do not get up at this point. They were up with their suitcases and all. And if you go through this video that I'm looking at, as they repeat some of the images, guys, near that, I think that festival is maybe near the southern end of Israel. And there's some pretty disturbing images and videos coming from down this highway there that just car after car after car on both sides of the road had been stopped, people killed or kidnapped, tortured, and pulled into a hostage situation. Now, that is concerning because of what Netanyahu has said about destroying Gaza. And you know the hostages would be put in places that would make any enemy not want to attack because they have their own citizens there. But in kind of the tone with Netanyahu and some of his ministers about this 50 years after they're going to destroy it and it won't be inhabitable by anyone but maybe them for 50 years, their tone was like there's going to be sacrifices. Was he talking about his own hostages? We don't know, but has it come to that? Imagine you're in a small nation like that, basically like one of our states, completely surrounded. What is going to happen? You know, I think they have a kill switch just like Russia does. If they're going to be totally overrun, the entire area is going to get nuked. Not for sure about that. It seems like I've read about it, but guys, I know that many of you in the comments are going to fill in the gaps that I'm creating here, so please do that. We're watching it. You watch it. It's a heads up. Be safe.